Stop it.
Can't
Take a shit.
I can't.
I'm gonna broadcast your shit.
Okay. We are live. Episode 35.
Did that just go live as well?
I don't know. This is live.
I think we should probably stop that one.
Why?
Because it'll talk about you taking a shit. The second we
What
went
are you
live.
talking about? I never said that. What are you talking about? You have a wild imagination. I just have to go get a phone call in a few minutes, but I'll be back.
Yeah, Michael needs to do a phone call.
Yeah, for 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes.
It sounds like one that feels like it's going to be a fast one. We are going to discuss give you an in-depth guide.
Be serious. This is a serious podcast.
This is very serious.
It's a serious podcast.
This is serious.
Forget the intro of episode 35 of the Bantercast.
Yeah, we'll get that out of the way. But in this episode, we will outline for you how to become a Bitcoin trillionaire. Step by step, point by point. You might ask yourselves, are there any Bitcoin trillionaires in the world? No, there are not.
I really want to be a trillionaire?
Do I want to be a Bitcoin trillionaire? I think you do.
Yes, you do.
I think you do. And this episode will tell you step by step on how to get it done. The first thing you need to do before you start anything is to buy a Lamborghini. That's the first step. Buy one.
And have probably about $500 billion.
$500 billion.
$500 billion to start with, and then you could become potentially a trillionaire.
The thing is, there's a lot to learn about. Okay, so this is a series. We're actually going to talk about blockchain, and we're actually going to talk about where we think the future is
of
for
the economy.
blockchain.
And this is, I would say that you are far more advanced on this than I am. So for me, this is a learning.
That's why I have to get on the phone later.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, you have to get on the phone about your Bitcoin trillions.
About my Bitcoin trillions.
Your Bitcoin trillions.
So let's do a little recap, first of all, on what the blockchain is. And although probably most of you would have learned by now, but I think just for those of you who haven't been reading everything on the internet for the past couple of years, blockchain is blown up in a big way as a technology. So when you think about blockchains, what you should first think about is database, right? Storing information and how it gets stored. A blockchain is a way of storing information, really, and controlling how people get access to it. And blockchain is really a piece of a greater technology. It's been around for a long time, and that technology is called distributed ledger technology. People call it DLT, distributed lettuce and tomato. DLT is a way of storing information in a distributed way. So from the beginning of the internet, basically until now, with a few exceptions, which we can talk about, the way businesses have made money on information is by centralizing it. So, you think of Uber. Uber is the central repository of information, right? There's drivers on one side and there's customers on the other side. That's a platform. And when passengers want to talk to drivers and drivers want to talk to passengers, Uber makes money.
Right.
So as a central figure, right? That's centralized data. When information is on Google, right? You can't download all the information on Google. It's impossible. Okay. And they wouldn't want you to do that anyway. What Google wants you to do is go on the platform searching for a website, meet a website that wants to find you, and sell you ads in exchange for access. Right? That's how centralized databases have worked historically. So what a distributed ledger is, and blockchain is one type of distributed ledger, is a way to decentralize the access for information. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about Bitcoin briefly.
So, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because again, I want to pick your brain on this.
Yeah.
Because the best way that I've heard it explained is that the distributed ledger, you just kind of imagine an online spreadsheet that everyone has access to.
Yeah.
And you can't change it. You can't.
Exactly.
Everything is recorded and encrypted. So,
So think of the ledger as what's in the database. So now we're just talking about the database, and we'll get and you're right. It's exactly right. So what's interesting about we talked about Google, for example. You can't download all Google's information because that would destroy Google. Google's business doesn't work that way.
Right.
No businesses work that way for the most part. I mean, banks don't work that way, right? I have money. I want to send money to Ben from my account to his account. Ben and I don't know each other, so we can't trust each other. So we go through a central, trustworthy source, a bank.
Which is
which right?
Okay, the bank,
which
right,
is
right.
a central source, right? I can't go directly to you. I have to go through a bank to you, or my credit card company goes to my bank, which goes to a credit card like processing facility, and then it goes to you. So up until now, everything has gone. There's no such thing as really peer-to-peer with a few exceptions. Like if you ever downloaded illegal porn or movies on the internet through
Never.
BitTorrent, exactly through BitTorrent.
No, I don't know. No,
never
done that.
Well,
done
some perverts.
But let's just say,
let's say some total pervert
some
did that.
masturbate, some
Yeah,
wanker.
some absolute wanker.
Yeah.
Absolute wanker.
Could the blockchain make that quicker?
Yes.
How would?
Okay, so
just for
porn,
a friend,
hypothetically for a friend,
for a mate.
Actually, it's the perfect use case. So, BitTorrent. If you ever used BitTorrent to download illegal movies, I mean, your friend ever did that.
Yeah, my mate.
So the way BitTorrent works
Yeah.
is a distributed technology,
Okay.
which says I want to download and you want to upload, all of us at the same time.
Okay.
So what I have, let's say I'm downloading a gigabyte of porn, just lots of dongs.
A mate would
Just
if
for
a
your
mate,
friend.
yeah.
For your friend, Japanese.
Can I just write this?
Yeah.
Just write this down.
Yeah, it's for the Japanese scat porn that your friend likes.
Okay.
You can. So let's say I have my Japanese scat porn,
Yeah.
and I have some fraction of it, and you have some fraction of it. We can between each other trade, and like I upload some, you upload some, and I download yours, and through the entire network of millions of people downloading Japanese scat porn.
Okay.
No central place is hosting the scat porn. It's hosted amongst all of our computers.
Okay.
So that's how BitTorrent works, which is an application of distributed technology. So let's go back to the example of Bitcoin. Are you downloading Japanese scat porn? So let's talk about Bitcoin. What Bitcoin is, before anything, is a distributed ledger technology.
Okay.
Right? It's a blockchain application. It was created by this guy Satoshi Nakamura.
And nobody knows who he is, right?
Nobody knows who he is.
Nobody knows who
You can
this guy
download
is.
it, but again, everything he wanted to do was about transparency. So you can download.
Bit weird coming from an anonymous guy.
Yeah,
I want to be transparent, but nobody's
but
going to know
no
who I
one's
am.
gonna know who I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is true. So you can, unlike Google, you can download every transaction that's ever happened on Bitcoin.
Right.
You can do it right now on your computer. It's a couple of gigabytes. Eventually, it might be really big, but you can download everything that's ever happened on this platform.
But it's encrypted,
ever.
so you can't.
No, I mean it's anonymized, yes, but you can see like everything that's ever happened on it.
Okay.
Right? And all that information is stored via a hash, which we can kind of explain later. But that's totally new and totally amazing.
Yeah.
Because that's like radical. That idea is radical. That you own the network, right? Before Google owns the network, and you pay Google through your eyeballs, or you pay Uber with your fees, or you pay a credit card company with fees. You pay for access to a network.
Right.
Now you become the network. That's the big shift, right?
Big shift. Okay.
So the way
So it's kind of like if everyone had rather than Google monetizing you,
you were Google.
you were Google.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like let's say there's a company called Filecoin, which is basically an ICO that started up that is essentially that idea that I have extra space on my computer that I can use to store, and you can pay me to use it. You can host a tiny fraction of a huge file on my computer.
Okay.
And you can pay me, some coins to use it. And we basically distribute an Amazon Web Service globally in a way that can't be hacked. Right. So when you have a single source, whenever you keep all your money in one bank, that bank becomes scary and vulnerable. Right. If someone attacks that bank, all your money's gone. Right. So the same thing with data. There's plenty of cases in history where data centers were just destroyed, flooded, or destroyed. Data's gone. So now it's in the ether, in a sense. I mean, it's stored in a way that's distributed. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin works by having people host like I said, you could download everything.
Yeah.
You can go on Google right now and find the Bitcoin database, and you could host it yourself.
Right.
And that can help you to basically access everything that's ever happened on Bitcoin.
Right.
And in exchange for processing transactions on the Bitcoin network, you get Bitcoin.
Okay.
Right? So what it does is it's an incentive mechanism
For you to contribute to the network.
to host a global decentralized network.
Right.
And the other amazing innovation with Bitcoin and Satoshi is this idea of digital scarcity. Until now, basically, until the time that we are here today, there was no such thing as digital scarcity. In other words, everything was a copy of something else. A picture was a copy of a picture. A document was a copy of a document. A music file was a copy of a music file.
Okay.
For the first time ever, one thing is this only thing. So this Bitcoin here with this exact Bitcoin is the only Bitcoin of this kind that there is, and there's none other, right?
It can't be copied.
Right. It can't be copied.
Right.
And the reason for that is a really complicated series of algorithms, which I won't go into explaining.
But that's the genius of Bitcoin.
That's the genius of Bitcoin.
Of the
decentralized digital scarcity that is encrypted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is it? Turing complete, right? So it means it's basically unhackable. You can't.
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
Yeah. So basically, it's, I won't say unhackable, but it's the hardest thing to hack. The amount of energy you would need and the amount of
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, just the Bitcoin network itself uses more energy to process transactions than all of Denmark. So you have to have a power source bigger than Denmark
to hack
it. Yeah. But the cool thing about it, again, so you can download, it's open source, right? Another amazing thing about Bitcoin is that you can just take the code for Bitcoin, copy paste, you have your own. You can just, it's called forking. You just take what's been done. It's all there for you, available for you. It's not hidden like the way Google does, or, sure. Take the code, because the value of this is not the code; it's the network.
It's the network.
So you can.
So who has the best network?
Yes.
So like Bitcoin Cash, right?
Right.
So that was a fork.
That was a fork.
Someone decided, right, we're not happy with this community.
Right.
We want to create our own community with a whole other load of layers on top of the network.
Right.
Or
so
like fancy
come
thing.
with me, guys.
Yeah.
So the Bitcoin Cash did an innovation, which is kind of cool. I don't know if they were the first, but I think they were one of the first, which is called airdropping, which is where they said, "Oh, you want a little bit of chai,
tea? Thank you, sir.
A little bit of tea."
Very sophisticated we are.
Yeah.
This is not Michael peeing.
If you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm not peeing in Ben's mouth.
He's pouring me a cup of tea.
That's what we call tea. Let me just do a little camera work here to make it more interesting. So Bitcoin Cash had this idea where they said, okay, look, we think we have a better way to do this distributed sort of scarcity. At this point in time, some Bitcoin Cash.
Okay.
Right? To incentivize them to make it juicy so they could get on the network. And that is kind of what airdropping is now. And people use airdropping for all kinds of ways to promote network behavior.
Okay.
So let's say we have our Japanese. Let's go back to our Japanese scat porn. Let's say we wanted to have a Japanese scat porn distributed database, and we make coins called scats.
Yeah.
We drop a bunch of scats into a network to try to get people like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, oh, this is get some scat porn. Get into the network and then try to participate, because the velocity of transactions within the network.
Okay.
Is how you value the network.
Interesting.
So that the more, like, Bitcoin is very valuable because there's transactions, things happening every single second, every single day, and with the hosting that's happening over the world we were talking about, that makes Bitcoin really valuable.
So the more active the network is, the more valuable the network becomes.
Yeah.
So you want a very active network.
You want a very active network, and there's a few kind of really revolutionary ideas, and the more I look, like, everyone sort of talks about, the number one thing I hear from kind of investors and Wall Street types, investment bankers, is like, oh, Bitcoin I don't believe in, but I believe in blockchain, the technology.
Yeah.
I actually, funnily enough, think Bitcoin is the greatest. The more I read, the more I look into it, the more I learn. Bitcoin is by far the best application of the technology to date. Nothing comes close.
Right. Okay.
Because again, it's like, it's been around since 2003. It works really well. It's pretty standardized. Basically, ultimately, Bitcoin in and of itself has value. Apart from the other applications, which I think are, who knows? So let's talk about, okay, so we talk about Bitcoin and why it's kind of cool. It's a digital store of value. Has digital scarcity. It's hosted on a distributed network. It can't be hacked, or it's really, really hard to hack it. And it allows you to process transactions. So what it is allows you to send, it records every transaction from, let's say, A to B and B to C and D to E on a ledger.
And that ledger is held collectively.
It's held collectively.
Right.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's totally revolutionary and totally new. And it's the first application of, I think, of blockchain.
Right.
And when you think about the internet, the first application of the internet that really went well was email, right? Which was, we have SMTP protocol. I'm going to send you dick pics over my email. They're going to load very slowly.
Yeah, we should stop.
We should stop that. It's been years now.
Yeah,
it's been years.
Too much.
Yeah, it's been years.
Can we move the dick pics onto the blockchain?
We can.
All right. Most importantly, the dick chain.
So that was kind of the first application. So the second thing we're talking about now is, okay, can we create a platform that allows for other things other than sending value, other than sending like Bitcoins across? Can we figure out another thing we can do? So the next innovation after this sort of sending value has been Ethereum. Started by this Ukrainian or Russian kid named Vitalik Buterin, and his idea was the smart contract. So Ethereum is another distributed ledger technology, another blockchain technology that basically allows for automatic processing of behaviors between parties.
Right.
So what does that mean? It means that, like, let's say right now I wanna let's say I want to be paid money when my plane is late.
Okay.
I want to get refunded my money if my plane doesn't show up.
Right.
The way that's done now is like a bunch of intermediary people and steps. It's kind of complicated.
Right.
With a smart contract, it's a way of saying, okay, since we have digital store of value, we have digital currencies, and we know how to build those. Can we figure out a way where currency or where value is transferred automatically based on a program, a computer program?
Right.
So when United Airlines doesn't show up, in this case, Ether, which is the currency on the Ethereum network, gets sent to Ben.
Okay.
Automatically through a program, through some software. These are called dApps, distributed apps.
Yeah.
And on top of Ethereum, people are building all kinds of distributed applications to do all kinds of things. That's just one example. And Ethereum, again, so Ethereum the creation of Ethereum was another revolutionary thing that happened in the last few years, which is the ICO. The ICO happened as a result of this, because Ethereum raised money by saying, I'm going to sell you tokens that you can use on Ethereum in exchange for money. So, and if you buy these tokens from me, I will build out Ethereum, because right now it doesn't exist. Right. Ethereum what was known as vaporware.
Okay.
It didn't exist.
Okay.
It was just an idea, basically. And he raised money on an idea from the world. I think he raised like $30 million to build this distributed platform to develop applications for smart contracts. And a bunch of other people started doing this. They were like, wow, this is pretty fucking cool. So I can just circumvent the entire financial system, and I can raise money directly from my users, and they can own and have a piece of my network in exchange. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Problem was that shit gets fucked.
It gets,
So, which leads us to what happened a couple years ago, was the DAO hack. Basically, an ICO, which was raising money, got hacked, and a lot of money got lost. And the Ether community decided to refund the investors.
Okay.
Which was kind of controversial at the time. But the SEC starts getting interested. Like regulations and government starts getting interested at this point, because what you're doing at that point when you're issuing tokens in exchange for some kind of something is selling securities, right? And since the 1930s, the SEC has had a lot of restrictions on how that gets done. It has a very strict process. And
that was in response to the crash.
That was in response to the crash.
Yeah.
So after the DAO hack, the SEC and Munchie, which is was another ICO, the SEC has sort of started saying, look, guys, I get that this is really new technology. Actually, they've been pretty lenient, I would say. They haven't really put anyone in jail. Actually, they've chased a couple people who were committing fraud, but some people were just like stealing money. But for the most part, if you were building some technology with the intention of of really doing it, they've been pretty lenient. But after this hack and a couple other events, the SEC has started issuing opinions about the way this gets done.
Right.
And the big question today is Ethereum, the network, a security or not? Right. In other words, are you selling something where people are expecting an increase in value or some kind of ownership, or are you selling like Chuck E. Cheese coins, which are useful inside of a network, right?
Right.
And the SEC has said that Bitcoin is not a security.
Okay.
But it hasn't ruled yet on Ethereum.
Right. So
the ICO, understanding the ICO is really important for everyone because it's going to be $1 trillion industry. Talking about $1 trillion, how to become a trillionaire, the ICO industry is going to become $1 trillion industry for sure, without a doubt.
And that will be based most likely on Ethereum, or could it be on another?
So I don't know. Nobody knows, but here's what I think. Now we're talking about blockchain 3.0. So before we were talking about 2.0, which is like Ethereum, and now it's 3.0. This pace of technology is like what happened from 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It's like 10 years.
Right.
So the speed, because you're talking about decentralized innovation. It's no longer like a bunch of guys in a garage in Silicon Valley. It's literally a network of developers all over the world, coding 24 hours a day, auditing code, in a decentralized way. These companies that are popping up that are doing blockchain, it's like developers in Russia, Silicon Valley, and in Mexico. Attorneys in New York, London, whatever, Cyprus.
All working on
all together, and then a network of users auditing code in exchange for tokens, right? So that means the pace of innovation is like 10x.
Insane. Yeah.
So as far as how ICOs will be built, will they built on Ethereum or some other thing? I don't know. There's a couple of, I would check out Hyperledger, which is like an open source project through the Linux Foundation, which is like a bunch of tools that are being kind of built in an open source way. But Ethereum looks to be doing really well. I mean, who knows? The big picture is it's going to be some iteration of the technology we have now.
Yeah.
And when that happens, when you're turning companies into networks, like really crazy, really amazing things start to happen because, again, we're talking about velocity of money and not not the extraction of money. Companies will just look totally different. I mean, we're talking about, and once you start tokenizing assets, like let's say instead of raising funds to build, to buy a apartment building, it gets tokenized into a billion tiny little fractions and sold all over the world through exchanges. And those right now, when you buy shares in something, people don't realize this, but let's say that you go on your Ameritrade account and you buy shares. There's a company whose job it is to take the paper and like transfer it, and it actually takes a week.
Yeah.
Right? It's really inefficient. And if I want to sell my shares, I got to go through a broker.
Yeah.
Through a company and sell to you. Again, we're talking about like this centralized form of trust. If the network itself can, through smart contracts, create trust between two people who don't know or trust each other, amazing things can happen because everything becomes more efficient. So the key to distributed ledger technology is this idea of the Byzantine consensus. So Byzantine consensus sounds like complicated and confusing, but it's not that. It's not that confusing of an idea. The idea is basically imagine there's an army surrounding a city, with two generals, right? The two generals don't trust each other, but they have to attack at the same time. If they don't attack at the same time, they'll lose. If one attacks and one stays, they lose, right? So they need to figure out a way how to build consensus. But the city is really big; it's hard to talk. So there's no way to conquer the city, right?
So you've got two generals on either side of the city,
yeah,
and they have to go in at the same time.
Yeah,
is what you say?
Double penetration.
We've managed to sexualize the Byzantine consensus
algorithm.
It works. It works
does.
for me. Yeah.
So in order to double penetrate the city,
they
we need to have a network that can allow two untrusting parties that can't see or talk to each other to communicate in a trustworthy way.
Right.
The network is the way that does, and Bitcoin is Bitcoin authenticates a bunch of nodes in the network. People remember talking about you could host, and that's what people call that mining. But let's just say you're hosting the network and processing transactions in exchange for Bitcoins.
Okay.
These people all authenticate transactions on the network.
Okay.
Right. So they allow for a consensus to be built. Like we all agree this transaction happened, and we all agree that the money was here and it's now here.
Right.
Right. And that's also what's called the double spending problem.
Okay.
And the double spending problem is that, like, you know, how do I know that this money isn't being spent twice somewhere?
Right.
Right. How do I know? And that's why central banks work, and that's why banks are able to have their business. Now that I know I'm not double spending. Now that I know I'm not double spending this money, I can now build something. I can do something interesting. So that's basically what the Bitcoin network is able to do. So once we're able to do this peer to peer, like once I can sell you, we're talking about this. Let's say we bought this apartment building, and we divided it into 1 billion pieces.
Okay.
We fractionalized into 1 billion little shards. And we sold these shards as tokens to investors.
Right.
These investors got cash flow as people paid rent.
Okay.
Right? Now I can take this token, and instead of having it on a central server, I can just carry it with me like as a digital source of value. Instead of having like some paperwork and some whatever, I have it, and I can give it to you or transfer to you directly peer-to-peer. It changes the idea of a lot of things. Like insurance, for example, is you get a bunch of people who are willing to pay for insurance, and they pay out premiums in exchange for loss, right? So if I have car insurance, I pay money every month, and 1 year I get in a car accident, I get paid back, right? And this all works through a centralized insurance company who takes that money and invests it, makes a bunch of cash, and pays out some amount in loss.
Yeah.
Now imagine that you get rid of the central insurance company, and we are the insurance company.
Yeah. So the network is
the network authenticates loss and authenticates payment, and all of a sudden you are now the insurance company. It's sort of a different understanding of what a customer and an owner and an equity holder and a user are.
Yeah.
It kind of changes the game a little bit, and it really empowers the individual.
I mean, you could apply that to something like healthcare, for example.
Yeah.
You could like totally revolutionize healthcare.
So any industry where there's a central party extracting a lot of rent in exchange for a really bad service is a pretty good target for disruption.
Yeah.
So I would say banks in a big way, insurance companies in a big way, utilities.
So that's why they're all pretty frightened by this technology.
Terrified. And the big sort of target, I think, are central banks.
Right.
Right. So what do central banks do? They issue currency. They devalue the currency, right? And to incentivize behaviors. And a lot of times they can't be trusted, right? Look at Zimbabwe or Venezuela, right?
Or Goldman Sachs.
Or well, I mean, but like in like for example,
in a more fundamental way.
It's more like.
Well, I'm thinking back to the 2008 and the crash and all the stuff that the banks were doing, the activities that the banks were engaging in that like was legal.
Absolutely, and well, the Satoshi white paper, Bitcoin itself was a sort of a reaction to what happened in 2008. And I think I said it was early 2003. Yeah, he wrote it in 2008 or 2009. I forget.
It was 2009, right? Bitcoin's been around since 2009.
Yeah, I actually don't now. I'm like blanking on when exactly it was, but
we can look that up.
Oh yeah, we have the internet. But basically, the issue
2009.
is 2009. Yeah. So central banks
right after the crash.
Right after the crash, central banks basically devalue currencies, right? They print money in order to pay off. So what the Fed did was they printed a bunch of money to add liquidity to the system, loaned a bunch of money to the banks for nothing to encourage banks to be solvent. It basically was a huge giveaway to the banks after the banks blew up the system.
Right.
Who knows whether that was good or bad. I mean, we're still alive today. I guess that's good. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not here to add value or to add a value judgment. But I just think that let's talk about Telegram. Telegram was an ICO for a chat application built by this Russian developer.
Yeah.
Whose name I actually don't remember right now off the top of my head. But Telegram, you can look it up. You can download the app. It's a distributed chat application using the blockchain to have private conversations that are unhackable and that sort of thing. So the guy who started Telegram was the founder of a website called VKontakte. It was like the Russian Facebook.
Yeah.
VK.
VK.com.
Yeah. And on VK, basically what happened was the Russian government knocked on his door and said, you know, how you doing? We want keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. And
the founder, actually, can you look up his name? The founder of VKontakte. The founder was like, man, this is crazy. Like I'm really vulnerable to these government intrusions because I don't have any control over like the laws, the where my company is, the currency. And he basically said,
Pavel Durov?
Could be. Yeah, Durov sounds right. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. So what he did was he did an ICO, and he raised $1.4 billion in ICO.
Whoa.
Right. And for the first time, nobody could tell him what to do.
Yeah.
They asked for the keys again. He said no.
Yeah.
He said this is like a violation of individual liberty. Absolutely not. And I have my own currency that he raised, Telegram currency, right? No longer does he rely on dollars or pounds or rubles. He has his own currency. He can exchange into Bitcoin,
which
or
can be converted into
instantly,
cash,
or into cash directly, or into Ether.
Yeah.
To buy services. All of a sudden, he exists freely from sovereign influence.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a pretty incredible moment in history. For the first time, a company has issued its own currency.
Right.
Not for the first time, but that's like a big example. He raised 1.4 billion.
And governments can't shut him down.
And governments can't shut him down. His information is now decentralized. Again, it's not a single point of attack where you can just take down the server. Right? You can't. It's undestroyable. It's hosted millions of times.
It's kind of like, it seems to me, it's kind of like a terrorist network, right? It's kind of like,
it could be.
Everyone was talking about Al-Qaeda. I'm not calling it a terrorist network,
right.
But I'm saying the way it operates is kind of like a terrorist network. So like, you know, one of the things
cells.
like Al-Qaeda, right? For example, like this is why everyone was saying we need to destroy Al-Qaeda. You can't destroy an idea. You can't destroy a decentralized idea or network. It's impossible.
It's impossible. Yeah.
I mean, you can destroy the idea,
but it just pops up somewhere else. Because if you were to, let's say, destroy Bitcoin,
well, the idea
could,
yeah.
But the code is there. You can just pop it up somewhere else.
Right. And you have to. The only way to destroy it is for people to stop believing in it.
Right. Correct.
When people stop believing in it, it doesn't exist anymore. But
as far as blockchain goes, the cat is out of the bag. There's no going back. We're already. It's done. Like it's if you're not on board, that's fine. But it's done.
So what? Okay. So I'm always I'm always hearing that thing from economists saying, oh, and banks, like the technology is interesting, but the cryptocurrencies are a fad and they're all going away.
I promise you, in 5 years, those people will be saying, "I believed it all along. It was great. I always knew. I was always behind it." I promise you that it's too late. That it's already happened and it can't be stopped.
Yeah, it's weird because I follow an economist, Nouriel Roubini.
Yeah.
Who I've got a lot of respect for as an economist. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom, I think they call him, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy who predicted he's predicted the Wall Street crash, and all this guy does on Twitter is bash Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. That's all he does all day. And I don't really care. I'm not I've invested in a bit of Bitcoin because I think that it's incredibly interesting. I'm not like putting my hedging my entire future on it, but I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting, and I clearly think it's the future of how we do trade. But I follow this. I'm kind of perplexed by no matter what happens to Bitcoin, it's always a bubble for him.
Right.
It's always a bubble. It's always going to burst. It's a scam.
Right.
And people. And I think a lot of what he says is probably right about some of the actors involved. Like there's a lot of scam artists involved.
A lot
in the crypto space.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how you can think that it's a fad when so many people. It's like calling Al Qaeda a fad.
Right.
Like, well, you can think that it's a fad, but if there's like 1 million people who don't, then it's real.
Yeah.
And you have to come to terms with that. You have to come to terms with the fact that it's a collective belief, right? That enough people collectively believe in it, therefore it is real. And the more you say it's not real, the more real it becomes, because they just say, well, fuck you, because it is real and I believe in it. And I think, when it's like the power of these decentralized networks, it becomes apparent when people try to destroy them.
Right. The fact that it hasn't been destroyed yet
is amazing. In 10 years,
amazing.
9 years, 9 years,
it's amazing. And I get everything he's saying, because from a a classical economist framework, or even a sort of an established investment framework, like Warren Buffett is another big naysayer. He
he's
hates
always
it.
bashing. Yeah.
But I get it, because again, we're talking about the acceleration of money and not cash flows.
Right.
So for someone like Warren Buffett, who values purely on cash flow, value investing and the acceleration acceleration of money. I'm sorry, the growth of value. I get it. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So also Warren Buffett never invested in Amazon or Facebook or Apple. Because that it doesn't, for his framework, they were ridiculous.
Right. They don't make sort of tangible.
Right.
Even though Apple
did, but he wasn't in Apple early, and I'm sure now he'd be fine with Apple. But he wasn't.
He'd probably think it was.
He wasn't into Amazon. He wasn't into Facebook. He's like, this makes no sense. Facebook makes no sense. So
in his worldview,
sure,
that makes sense. Yeah,
you can't knock his worldview, because the guy is very, very successful at what he does. And I admire him greatly. So it's just.
But it doesn't matter. But this is the thing. I think that just because you're rich doesn't mean that you're right.
Well, no, but he's a very smart guy, and I think when smart people say things, you should take them seriously. I'm fine with that. But I also don't know how much time he spent on checking it out. Who knows? But I will say this: for people like that, it's fine. I have no problem with it. I'm not one of those. I'm not like an ideological cult member. I do think that 95% of ICOs will be worth zero.
Nothing. Yeah. Because that aspect of the whole crypto world, I just look at it as, for me, it's like an interesting kind of social science project.
For sure.
I'm observing from. I've got a little bit invested in it.
Yeah.
Just because I want a bit of skin game.
That's the way to do it.
But I look at it as an interested observer. I just want to see where does this go.
Yeah,
there's a lot of scam artists.
A lot, and I think you're gonna see. There's another. I forget that. I'll find it. Another example of an ICO, basically the founder stealing money, and there's gonna be plenty of that. I mean, you're talking about human behavior and human greed, and
so there's always going to be corrupted. Yeah,
there's plenty of examples of people running off with money, or people just. What happened in 2017 was that a bunch of people wrote white papers, and they raised $40 million overnight.
Yeah.
And no shit, that's not going to work.
Right.
You need to have people who are serious, who built real things and have MVPs, and it's not serious to. It's okay. We'll put it this way: it's very, very, very risky to invest in someone who has never made anything and just wrote it down.
Right.
So a lot of these people are going to go to nothing. But Ethereum was an idea too, and look at Ethereum.
But it's now turned into something.
Yeah, it's turned into something. So again, that's why I go back to Bitcoin being amazing, which is it's still here and it can't be killed. And every year people say it's going to die, and every year it grows.
It grows, right?
So it's an amazing idea, and it's an amazing hedge against sort of global volatility, as tends to be that when central banks start getting a little bit scary, or when conflicts happening, Bitcoin goes up. As we saw Venezuela kind of going down, we saw Bitcoin go up.
Right.
As capital controls increased in mainland China, you saw Bitcoin go up. So it's kind of again, it's an outside hedge outside of the existing central bank
governments
network.
Must be freaked out.
Governments hate it
because
absolutely.
The more they clamp down on it,
right.
I mean, you see that when they clamp down on it, people get freaked out and the price goes down.
Oh yeah.
But then it rebounds.
Yeah, exactly right. I think as a hedge against hegemony,
right?
It's kind of interesting.
It's almost a way to keep governments honest, keep them in check.
Yeah, I think, like Tim Draper, who's like a VC who's famous for, he bought all the Bitcoin. So the Silk Road auction off a bunch of Bitcoin. He like bought all of it.
So he must be doing
doing very well. And his belief is that governments in the future will compete for citizens because citizens won't rely on them for money to make the currency. And once you don't rely on a government to make currency, kind of the question of what a government really is for becomes more about services.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. And so, that becomes an interesting idea.
So the government's, so if you want to like attract the best people, you have to have the best services.
Yeah.
We've got the best healthcare.
Right. We've got the best healthcare. So come over here and give us your Bitcoins, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting idea. Who knows? But the great thing about it is that the more authoritarian you are, the harder it's going to be for you. And the more open and transparent you are, the easier it'll be for you. So, governments like, I think the U.S. will be fine. But, a government like Venezuela is in big trouble, or Zimbabwe is in big trouble. And I don't know what they're going to do, really. So, yeah, I think in my mind, if you are trying to figure out how to become a Bitcoin trillionaire, first of all, get into the big blockchain companies are hiring like crazy right now.
Yeah.
Go work for one. Go work for CoinList, Coinbase, Republic. Go work for the companies that are doing really well already. And I think Coinbase will become the next Google. The way they're just buying companies and talent, and they're making billions of dollars in the exchange of different currencies, and they seem to be pretty well run.
So Coinbase is probably the most well known exchange, right?
Yeah, it's not the biggest, but it's definitely the most well known.
Yeah,
and it seems to be run really well. A centralized exchange, and they're just acquiring talent really, really intelligently, and that's a great company to work for or to like check out and learn from. And the great thing about the community right now is you can literally go meet with anyone. Like I met the Coinbase CEO. I just emailed him. You know what I mean? I just emailed the CoinList guys. Just went to meet with them, and it's really still a really nascent stage where anyone will meet with anyone. And you're at a point now where you can get in the beginning of something really exciting. Basically, the transformation of equity. And
that to me is the most interesting aspect of all of this is how it could transform the way companies work and how employees view themselves. Because
absolutely.
Like right now, you work for a company. It's like you don't feel like you own part of the company. You've got cooperatives. I've always thought that a cooperative was kind of an interesting model, an interesting way. But there are also there are a lot of problems with cooperatives because there is some value to a central control. There's some value to having a hierarchy. I think
I do too. Yeah. Like, you don't need to decentralize everything. And I think, in fact, centralized databases, for example, make a lot of sense. They're really efficient.
Right.
So it's not that everything is going to get decentralized. It's just that the things that should be decentralized will be.
But, say if you work for a company and, you don't necessarily want to be a part of all the kind of managerial decision-making, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be there for, if you're, I don't know, if you're cleaning the toilets or whatever for a company, no, whatever. It's a job. It pays money. Fine. Right. But if you had tokens in that company, that you work for that company, you clean the toilets, right, and you get tokens in exchange for your work,
right,
and those tokens increase in value if the success of the company,
right,
you can use them you can cash them out, or you can keep them, put them back into the company. I think that makes sense. That would would make you feel, it's an incentive. At least you feel that you can own some of the company that you are. Does that make sense?
You can do basically a smart contract, right? So let's say every time you get a great review or something like that on your, let's say, service. I don't know. You get issued tokens. This is a cool smart contract way to build it, and we're at the beginning of all of that. And again, what it means to be an owner changes, and the governance of it changes, and what it means to be a customer changes. And we're at the very beginning of it, and I am all in on it.
Should you remortgage your house and buy Bitcoin?
No.
Should you sell your car and buy Bitcoin?
No. What you should do is patiently, because you don't I don't think the way to become a trillionaire is by buying currencies. I think the way you become a trillionaire is by building networks. And you want to like understand the space enough, but the real value is there's very few people who understand what's happening. And joining companies early is the way to go.
It's the way to do it.
Or starting companies, or building networks, or putting together the infrastructure for the future is where the trillions of dollars are going to be. Because we're talking about trillions, and we're not talking about billions. We're talking about trillions. We're talking about everything. We're talking about equity. We're talking about companies. We're talking about like networks. I mean, you know, what's the value of the internet? I don't know. A lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about building internet 2.0.
Yeah.
You know, so. And the cool thing is you get to own a piece of it. The people who invented like the protocols that work with the networks didn't get shit. That is going to be, and so you know, read the Satoshi white paper to start, and just be part of the space and understand it and invest a little bit. I mean, invest what you are willing to lose, because like I said, a lot of these are things that are going to zero out.
Right.
Personally, I'm more into Bitcoin than any of the other altcoins. Because I just think it's the most interesting one. But, you know, I hold Ether and Neo and a few other ones. This is not investment advice at all. But I personally just am I'm more impressed with Bitcoin the more and more I read about it, the more I learn about other things, and the more I see what other people have actually done. It's like, Bitcoin is better.
Right.
One thing we should talk about is, what's it called? Is it Crypto Cats?
Crypto cats, yeah. This is like people making millions off virtual cats, right?
What's it called again? Oh, Crypto Kitties. Crypto Kitties.
Yeah.
If you talk about Crypto Kitties, Crypto Kitties was a smart application built on the Ethereum network. Okay. And it almost destroyed the network.
Right.
Because the number of transactions happening were too much for Ethereum. So that's how you know that Ethereum is not ready for prime time.
Right.
Right? So, like, think about credit card transactions, how many happen. Okay, like, selling a few kitties almost killed the network. And what it was, you know, these crypto kitties had unique digital identities. So, like we were saying, how Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. The same works for these kitties. They were selling these kind of crypto kitties over the Ethereum network. And it almost killed the network.
Right.
So, that's where we are.
Right.
We're at the point where crypto kitties almost kills the internet.
Wow.
So, we're super early, duper early.
Very
so
early.
Be patient about it and use what's called dollar cost averaging, which is no matter what, you only invest a certain amount a year, a month, no matter what. No matter if it's super high or super low, it's the same over a period of time. So you say you're going to invest $1,000 over a year, you invest $1,000 over the year, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And do it regularly over a period of time. You know. Don't rush in and buy a bunch of shit and then just and then shake and get nervous.
And then hope that it goes up. Yeah.
Because that is not going to be if you're really serious about jumping into a new world, jump into it as a builder of things, not as a speculator of things.
Right.
And there's so much happening and so many great companies all over the world in a distributed way that there's so much room for people who are interested in the space. And there's so many events happening everywhere, meetups everywhere, so much literature out there, so much to read. You know, there's a couple of really great podcasts. You know, so jump into a company and build the next $1 trillion company, because I guarantee you there will be several $1 trillion companies built on blockchain.
And one of them could be yours.
So that's how you become a Bitcoin trillionaire.
Okay, all right. I think that's a lot of information.
It's a lot.
Yeah. A lot of information. But look, we're going to get other people on the podcast to talk about this. Michael is actually, I'm always actually really impressed with your knowledge on this stuff. It's very interesting hearing you talk about it. So maybe we don't even need another expert.
Yeah, fuck that. We don't need anybody else. No, there's tons of people we could have on that I think are really interesting. The big holes now are like largely one, regulatory. No one knows how the regulation is going to affect this industry. But again, countries are competing for this technology, so they're competing in terms of regulation. Who can get it right?
Right.
I personally put my money on the SEC because I just think that, again, we're talking about a really established, really pretty well-run organization that is, although a lot of the sort of crypto anarchists don't like regulation, they seem to be really easygoing and really understanding of it being a nascent technology, and I don't think they're here to kill the innovation. Yeah, kill the innovation. So you want protection for investors. You want that stuff. Actually, you want it to be safe so that it can grow. But yeah, the innovation is a big one. So the regulation is a big one. The next is the pace of innovation is so fast. I was just at a conference in New York, and it felt like the crypto 2.0 people, like the Litecoins and the Ethereum people, couldn't hang out with the 3.0. The 3.0 people who were like the newest kind of wave, the new wave of blockchain technology. On a technical side, they blew them out of the water. Wow. So we're talking about a year, 6 months. So just staying on top of all the tech is going to be really hard.
It's difficult, yeah.
We have your friend, our friend Dimitri Kofinas is really big on Hashgraph, Hedera Hashgraph, which is a super exciting technology. I read their white paper and I was very impressed with it. And it seems like, again, a great technology. But I think what people are misunderstanding and what's really important to emphasize, and we've said it before in this podcast, and I'll say it again, it's not about the technology exactly. It's about the network.
It's about the network.
It's about the behaviors of a network. So you might have a better mousetrap, but if you can't encourage people to get on it, so what? So that's a really important takeaway I've had from just analyzing the industry is look at the network behavior and watch the community.
Right.
And see how the community behaves. Who has the best community? He or she who has the best community will have the best solution.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So look, follow us. Follow us on YouTube. We're on YouTube Live. You can go to the Bantercast on YouTube and subscribe. You can definitely follow us on iTunes. Follow us on iTunes at the Bantercast. And if you really, really love us, you can also come to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Bantercast, where you can chuck us a couple of bucks, keep us going, keep us in cups of tea.
Few bob.
Few quid. But follow us, subscribe, share. Because we've actually realised that our actually listeners has doubled in the last month. Yeah. So whatever we are doing seems to be working.
Absolutely.
People like the banter.
And if you like the banter, definitely let us know. Leave some comments, send us messages. We love to hear from you. And if you like this kind of stuff, let us know. We want to know what you want us to talk about. Yeah. More Japanese scat porn, whatever you need, really.
But we felt we should do a Bitcoin thing because it's a hot topic.
Hot topic.
All right, everybody. Love you all, and we will see you next week.
Cheers.
Peace.